At 2:13 in the morning, every alarm inside the Halcyon Hotel began screaming at once, and the most feared man in Philadelphia found a curvy hotel manager standing between him and the only door he could not force open. Red emergency lights pulsed through the service corridor, staining the polished walls in flashes of crimson, while hundreds of guests waited behind locked fire partitions for instructions. Vincent Moretti stood 10 feet from Claire Bennett in a black suit that looked untouched by the chaos around him. Two of his men guarded the stairwell. A third, Marcus Hale, pounded against the reinforced door from the other side, shouting that someone was moving through the restricted wing. Claire held the master key against her chest. Her dark green uniform jacket was rumpled, one sleeve dusted with plaster from a ceiling panel that had fallen during the evacuation, but her voice remained steady. "You are not opening this door." Vincent's expression barely changed. Men twice Claire's size had forgotten how to breathe under that stare. She did not. "My security chief is trapped out there," he said. His voice was quiet enough to make the alarm seem louder. "Then he will follow the evacuation route I gave him. There is someone behind you." Claire shifted slightly, blocking more of the doorway. She was 38, 5'7", and solidly built, with broad hips and a soft body that luxury executives often treated as evidence that she did not belong in a five-star lobby. Tonight, that body formed an unmovable barrier between Vincent Moretti and the frightened woman hidden inside the emergency shelter. "That person is under my protection," Claire said. Vincent took one measured step forward. "You have no idea what is happening in this building. I know the fire alarm was triggered from a maintenance panel that should require 2 employee codes. I know the west stairwell camera went dark 90 seconds before the alarm. And I know someone is trying to make 300 guests move exactly where they want them." For the first time, something shifted in Vincent's eyes. Not anger. Calculation. Claire had seen that look before on wealthy men who discovered the employee they had ignored knew more than they did. A violent metallic crash echoed beyond the fire door. Marcus shouted her name, followed by a warning that footsteps were approaching from the loading level. Vincent reached inside his jacket. Claire's hand tightened around the key. "No weapons near my guests." "Move, Miss Bennett." "No." The word landed between them with more force than a shout. Vincent stopped close enough for Claire to see the fine snow melting on the shoulders of his coat. He could have ordered his men to drag her aside. He could have broken the lock, bought the hotel, or destroyed her career before sunrise. Instead, he looked past her toward the narrow gap beneath the door. A silver bracelet had slipped into view from the darkness beyond it. Vincent went completely still. The bracelet was old, delicate, and engraved with a tiny crescent moon. Behind Claire, a woman drew a shaking breath and whispered a name no one in the Moretti organization had used in 25 years. "Vinny." The color drained from Vincent's face. 6 hours earlier, he had walked into the Halcyon expecting its finest suite, immediate obedience, and a private meeting that could decide the future of his empire. Claire Bennett had refused him all three. Now, with the hotel locked down and his estranged sister hiding behind the one woman who had dared tell him no, Vincent finally understood that Claire had never been protecting a room from him. She had been protecting someone from the kind of man he had become. 6 hours earlier, Claire Bennett stood behind the marble front desk of the Halcyon, watching snow buried downtown Philadelphia beneath a white silence that made the city feel almost innocent. Inside, crystal chandeliers glowed above polished floors, a pianist played softly near the lounge, and wealthy guests crossed the lobby without noticing the woman who kept their perfect world from collapsing. Claire had spent 16 years learning that luxury was not created by silk sheets or imported champagne. It was created by people who remembered which elevator hesitated on the 12th floor, which housekeeper was caring for a sick father, and which nervous guest needed help without being forced to explain why. Claire remembered everything. The hotel executives rarely praised that skill. They noticed her broad hips in the tailored green uniform, the softness around her waist, and the way her body refused to match the narrow image printed in corporate brochures. Howard Whitmore, the regional director, had once suggested that a more polished figure might reassure elite clients. Claire had asked whether he wanted someone who looked reassuring or someone who knew how to evacuate 300 people during a power failure. He had never answered. That evening, Howard had warned her that an important guest was expected before midnight. "Do not create problems," he said. This account could change your future. Claire knew what that meant. One complaint from the right man, and 15 years of loyalty could disappear before breakfast. At 8:17, the revolving door turned, and a woman entered alone. She was about 30, pale from the cold, wearing a gray wool coat over an expensive black dress. She carried no suitcase. Snow clung to her dark hair, and one hand remained wrapped around her opposite wrist as though she were trying to hide a tremor. "I need a room," she said. "Any room?" Claire asked for identification. The woman produced a driver license bearing the name Nina Bell, but her eyes moved toward the entrance each time headlights passed outside. Claire had seen that pattern before. Fear did not always look like panic. Sometimes it looked like perfect manners, a quiet voice, and a person trying desperately not to take up space. "Is someone following you?" Claire asked. Nina's expression closed immediately. "No," Claire lowered her voice. "I am not asking because I want details. I am asking because the answer changes how I protect your privacy." Nina stared at her for several seconds. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "Please do not put my room in the regular system. Do not tell any man that I am here, even if he says he is family." Hotel policy required identification, registration, and immediate reporting of unusual requests. Claire also knew that rigid policy could become a map for the wrong person. Years earlier, her younger sister had escaped an abusive relationship because a night clerk at a roadside hotel refused to reveal her room number. Claire had never forgotten that stranger's courage. She opened a drawer, removed a staff key, and told Nina to follow her through a door marked employees only. The Halcyon had 2 unused restrooms behind its executive offices, spaces absent from public floor plans and inaccessible through guest elevators. Claire placed Nina in the larger one, brought water, a phone charger, and a clean robe, then explained every exit. "I cannot promise that no one will look for you," Claire said. "I can promise they will have to get through me first." Nina's eyes filled, but she did not cry. She removed a delicate silver bracelet engraved with a crescent moon and turned it nervously around her wrist. "You do not know who you are protecting." Claire closed the door gently. "Tonight, you are a guest who asked for help. That is enough." 40 minutes later, 3 black sport utility vehicles stopped beneath the hotel's golden awning, and every employee in the lobby suddenly stood straighter. The first sport utility vehicle stopped beneath the awning with its headlights cutting through the snow, followed by 2 more that formed a black wall against the curb. The hotel doorman opened the revolving door, and Vincent Moretti entered without hurrying. He wore a charcoal overcoat over a perfectly fitted black suit, and the cold seemed to follow him into the lobby. 4 men came with him, each silent, alert, and dressed with the careful restraint of people who did not need to advertise danger. Conversations softened. The pianist missed a note. Even Howard Whitmore straightened his tie before crossing the marble floor with both hands extended. "Mr. Moretti, welcome to the Halcyon. Everything has been prepared." Claire looked up from the reservation screen and immediately knew that Howard was lying. No presidential booking appeared under Moretti, any known company, or any of the private accounts the hotel used for discreet clients. Vincent did not shake Howard's hand. His dark eyes moved across the lobby, taking in the entrances, security, cameras, elevator positions, and staff movements before settling on Claire. He noticed more in 3 seconds than most guests noticed in 3 days. "I need the presidential suite, the adjoining conference room, and exclusive control of the private elevator until 6 in the morning," he said. Howard's smile tightened. "Of course." Claire closed the reservation screen. "That floor is unavailable." Silence spread outward from the desk. Howard turned slowly, as if he had heard her speak in another language. "Claire, I will handle this. The executive floor is restricted tonight." Vincent approached the desk. Up close, his presence was quieter and more unsettling than the reputation surrounding him. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Restricted for whom?" "I cannot disclose guest information." Howard stepped beside her and reached for the administrator terminal. "Mr. Moretti is not an ordinary guest." Claire placed her hand over the keyboard before he could enter his code. "The policy does not change according to net worth." A faint shift passed through the face of the tallest guard, Marcus Hale. His gaze traveled over Claire's broad figure, and the green jacket fitted across her waist. "This is about a hotel room," he said. "Do not turn it into your chance to feel powerful." Claire met his eyes without blinking. If I wanted to feel powerful, I would make a speech. I am doing my job. Howard's face flushed. Override the restriction now, or consider yourself suspended. Claire removed her employee badge, set it carefully on the counter, and slid it toward him. Then she entered a command that locked the executive floor permissions under emergency privacy protocol. You may suspend me, she said. You still cannot access that floor without security review. Howard stared at the screen in disbelief. Vincent watched Claire instead. There was no triumph on her face, only resolve and the quiet calculation of someone already preparing for consequences. How much would it take, he asked. For what? To make the floor available. Claire thought of Nina sitting alone behind an unmarked staff door, listening for footsteps in a building full of strangers. There is no amount. Marcus gave a humorless laugh, but Vincent silenced him with a glance. You are risking a career for someone you may never see again. That is what protection means when it is real. Something sharpened in Vincent's expression. And if the person you are hiding is dangerous? Then I will deal with the facts when I have them. I will not hand over a frightened guest because a powerful man dislikes the word no. For several seconds, the only sound was snow brushing against the glass entrance. Vincent finally looked toward the elevators. Give us another floor. Howard began to protest, but Vincent continued. No one touches her. No one searches the hotel without her permission. Claire was surprised, though she did not show it. As the men moved toward the east elevators, she noticed someone near the far service corridor wearing a gray maintenance uniform. The man held a tool case, but instead of checking the heating controls, he was studying the hotel's emergency evacuation map. When he realized Claire was watching, he lowered his head and disappeared through a staff door that required a key he should not have possessed. Claire moved before the maintenance door finished swinging shut. She crossed the lobby, ignoring Howard calling her name, and reached the corridor just as the latch clicked into place. Her master key no longer worked. Someone had changed the access setting from inside. That should have been impossible. Only 3 people had permission to alter staff security zones after business hours: Claire, the chief engineer, and Howard. She turned and found Howard standing behind her, furious and pale. You are done, he said. You embarrassed this hotel in front of one of the most influential men in the city. Claire kept her voice low. Did you authorize a temporary maintenance worker tonight? Do not change the subject. Did you? Howard hesitated. A contractor was added this afternoon. Emergency heating support. By whom? My office. You did not know his name. Howard's silence answered her. Claire looked through the narrow glass panel in the door, but the corridor beyond was empty. Your administrator credentials may have been compromised. Howard stepped closer. You are suspended. Hand over every key and leave the property. There is a vulnerable guest in this building. An unauthorized man has entered a secured corridor, and you want the only manager who noticed to go home. I want someone who understands that wealthy clients expect cooperation. A quiet voice came from behind them. And what do frightened guests expect? Vincent stood at the mouth of the corridor with Marcus several feet behind him. Howard immediately straightened. Mr. Moretti, this is an internal matter. Vincent ignored him. His attention remained on Claire. You said protection was real only when it cost something. What exactly is it costing you? Claire looked down at the employee badge still clipped to her jacket. Possibly my career. For a stranger? Yes. Why? The question was not mocking. It was precise, almost clinical, as though Vincent were testing the strength of a bridge before trusting it with weight. Claire could have told him that hotel policy required discretion. That would have been true, but not complete. My younger sister ran from a man who controlled her money, her phone, and every person she spoke to, Claire said. She checked into a roadside hotel outside Baltimore. He arrived 20 minutes later and demanded her room number. The night clerk refused. He threatened her job, called her names, and waited in the parking lot until police came. My sister got out because one woman decided privacy mattered more than pleasing an angry man. Vincent's face revealed nothing, but Marcus stopped looking amused. So now you save every woman who appears frightened? Vincent asked. No. I listen. Then I make a decision and accept the consequences if I am wrong. And if the woman upstairs has lied to you, then I will deal with the lie. I will not punish fear before I know the truth. Howard exhaled sharply. This is sentimental nonsense. Claire turned toward him. No, it is risk assessment. The guest arrived without luggage, watched every entrance, asked that no man be told where she was, and wore an expensive dress under a coat bought 3 sizes too large. She did not plan to travel. She planned to disappear. Vincent's gaze sharpened at that last word. What did she look like? Claire studied him. I will not tell you. Marcus shifted forward, but Vincent raised one hand. She is either brave, Marcus said, or very foolish. Those are not opposites, Claire replied. Vincent almost smiled, though no warmth reached his eyes. Then the elevator bell sounded behind them. A hotel engineer hurried into the corridor, holding a tablet. Miss Bennett, someone used Mr. Whitmore's credentials to open the West Service stairwell and download the evacuation map. Claire looked at Howard. He seemed genuinely stunned. Vincent looked toward the locked maintenance door. Your stranger did not come here alone, he said. Claire shook her head. No, she came here first. Someone else followed. From somewhere above them, a fire door slammed hard enough to echo through the walls. Claire did not run toward the sound. Panic made people move fast and think badly, and the Halcyon was full of places where one wrong turn could trap a guest behind a locked door. She took the engineer's tablet, opened the live access log, and studied the sequence of entries. The false maintenance credential had opened the west stairwell, the service elevator on level 14, and a housekeeping supply room near the closed conference wing. He is not searching randomly, Claire said. He is moving along the routes that do not appear on guest maps. Howard looked over her shoulder. Call the police. We will, but first we keep 300 people from becoming obstacles. She turned to the engineer. Disable remote access to staff locks. Leave fire exits active. Send 2 supervisors to verify every contractor badge in person. Then she faced Vincent. Your men cannot search the hotel. Marcus gave a cold laugh. You expect us to wait while someone moves through the building? I expect you not to frighten guests, block exits, or mistake an employee for a threat. Vincent studied the tablet in her hands. What do you need? The question surprised Howard more than Claire. She answered without hesitation. 2 of your men at the public entrances. No visible weapons. They watch who leaves, not who enters. Marcus stays with you. My staff controls the service routes. And the woman? She remains under my protection unless she chooses otherwise. Vincent's gaze hardened. You are asking me to help protect someone you will not identify. I am asking you to protect the building. Those are different things. For a long moment, neither moved. Claire could feel Howard waiting for Vincent to crush the boundary she had drawn. Instead, Vincent removed his gloves and handed them to Marcus. Do it her way. Marcus looked displeased, but he obeyed. Claire led the engineer through a narrow passage behind the concierge desk, then used a mechanical key to enter the housekeeping office. The room smelled of linen spray and hot dust from an old radiator. On the wall, a printed schedule listed every employee assigned to the night shift. One name had been added in blue ink after the page was printed. Calvin Reed, temporary mechanical support. Claire called the chief engineer. He had never heard of him. She checked the vendor code beside the name and found it belonged to a carpet cleaning company that had not worked with the Halcyon in 4 years. Someone had not merely stolen a badge. Someone had studied the hotel's old records. A soft chime sounded from the tablet. The service elevator had stopped on level 14, but no authorized key had called it. Claire opened the camera feed. The screen showed an empty elevator with a gray tool case resting near the back wall. He left the case as a distraction, she said. Vincent stood close enough to see the feed, his expression unreadable. How can you be certain? A real maintenance worker never abandons tools in an elevator. They cost too much, and every item is assigned. Claire enlarged the image. A folded evacuation map protruded from the case, marked with 3 circles. One surrounded the executive floor. Another marked the loading dock. The third marked the closed conference wing, where Claire had moved Nina. Her pulse tightened, but her voice remained calm. He knows where she is going, not where she is now. Vincent looked at her sharply. You moved her. The moment I saw him studying the map. Where? That is still not your information. A faint sound came through the tablet speaker, a woman's voice from a nearby hallway camera. Claire, Nina whispered from somewhere beyond the conference wing. There is someone outside the door. Claire reached for the radio at her belt. Vincent caught the movement, but not her wrist. He stopped himself before touching her. Tell me what to do, he said. Claire looked into the dark eyes of a man accustomed to giving orders and realized he was offering her control of the next move. Keep your people away from the east elevators, she said. And trust me for 5 minutes. Claire did not waste the 5 minutes Vincent gave her. She sent the engineer to lock the east elevators on the lobby level, then took the narrow service staircase toward the conference wing with Vincent and Marcus several steps behind. The carpeted corridor on level 14 was silent except for the distant hum of ventilation and the soft crackle of Claire's radio. She stopped at the corner before the closed ballroom doors and raised one hand. A man in a gray maintenance uniform stood near the staff lounge, pretending to examine a thermostat. His tool case was gone. Claire spoke through the radio in a calm voice. Nina, stay where you are. Do not open the door for anyone unless you hear me give the name of this hotel's first general manager. The disguised man glanced toward the sound of her voice, abandoned the thermostat, and moved quickly toward the service stairwell. Marcus started after him, but Claire blocked his path. Let him go. He knows where she is, Marcus said. No, he knows where he thinks she is. Following him will leave this corridor unprotected. Vincent watched the stairwell door close. You used yourself to confirm his target. I used his impatience. Claire crossed to the staff lounge and entered the code. The room was empty. A second door at the rear opened into an unused boardroom, where Nina stood beside the long walnut table, gripping a hotel telephone with both hands. Her face was pale, and the silver crescent bracelet trembled against her wrist. Claire, she whispered. He said Daniel sent him. Vincent stopped in the doorway. The change in him was immediate and absolute. His shoulders went rigid. His eyes fixed on the bracelet first, then lifted slowly to the woman's face. Nina turned toward him, and the telephone slipped from her hand onto the carpet. For one suspended second, neither of them spoke. Then Nina breathed a name so softly that Claire nearly missed it. Vinny. Vincent stepped forward as if the years between them had collapsed. Nora. Nina closed her eyes. The false name, the careful posture, and the controlled voice all disappeared at once. She looked younger, not because her face changed, but because fear stripped away every defense she had built. Claire moved between them before Vincent could cross the room. Marcus stared at her in disbelief, but Claire kept her attention on Nora. Do you want him to come closer? Nora looked past Claire at her brother. Vincent Moretti was feared across the city, but the woman before him did not look relieved to see him. She looked trapped. No, Nora said. The word shook, but it was clear. Vincent's jaw tightened. Nora, I have been searching for you for 6 years. You stopped searching when Daniel told you I was happy. He showed me letters. He wrote them. Vincent took another step. Claire did not move. She answered you, Claire said. His gaze dropped to her, cold and dangerous. This is my sister. That does not erase her answer. Marcus shifted near the door, waiting for an order. Vincent could have given one. He could have removed Claire from his path with a sentence. Instead, he looked at Nora's white knuckles, the oversized coat she still wore indoors, and the way she flinched whenever he moved closer. Understanding reached him slowly, and it hurt more than anger would have. Claire was not protecting Nora only from the man who had followed her into the hotel. She was protecting Nora from a brother who had spent his life believing love gave him the right to decide for everyone. Vincent stepped back. Nora opened her eyes. Daniel needs me at the courthouse before sunrise, she said. If I sign what he prepared, he gets control of my mother's trust, and he gets a legal claim over every company tied to my name. Vincent's expression hardened, but Nora raised one trembling hand before he could speak. I did not come here so you could take me from him. I came here because I need someone to help me choose what happens next. Claire turned toward Vincent. For the first time that night, the most powerful man in the room had no order to give. Vincent looked at Nora as though restraint required more strength than any threat he had ever made. You are coming with me, he said at last. Nora's face closed immediately. Claire heard the fear return to her breathing before she saw it in her eyes. No, Nora said. Vincent turned toward Claire. This hotel is compromised. Daniel has men inside, and my sister is exposed. Then make the hotel safer, Claire replied. Do not make her choice smaller. His expression hardened. You think I should leave her here? I think you should ask what she wants. I know what keeps people alive. You know what gives you control. Marcus lowered his gaze, pretending not to hear. Nora stood very still beside the walnut table, caught between the brother who wanted to command the danger away and the stranger who had protected her without demanding anything in return. Vincent took one step toward Claire, close enough that she could feel the force of his anger even though his voice remained low. Daniel Crowe has judges, private security, and half the city's political class answering his calls. He does not stop because someone tells him no. Then Nora needs more than another powerful man telling her where to go. The words struck cleanly. Vincent's eyes flashed, but Claire did not retreat. If she leaves with you because she is afraid to refuse, how are you different from him tonight? Silence tightened across the room. Nora covered her mouth with one hand. Vincent looked at his sister, and something in his face changed when he saw that she was waiting for his answer. Not his order. His answer. He exhaled slowly. What do you want, Nora? She swallowed. A lawyer who does not work for you. A place Daniel cannot enter. And time to decide what happens to my trust. I can provide all three. You can arrange them, Claire said. She chooses them. Vincent turned toward her again, but this time the anger had lost its edge. You draw very careful lines. People cross careless ones. Nora gave a faint, exhausted laugh, the first sound from her that was not shaped by fear. Claire took the hotel telephone and called a 24-hour legal advocacy service she had used once for an employee. She placed the receiver on speaker and let Nora speak for herself. Vincent listened as his sister explained the coerced documents, restricted accounts, and threats Daniel had disguised as protection. With every sentence, his stillness became more dangerous, but he did not interrupt. When the advocate offered 3 secure locations, Nora chose one outside the city and asked for independent transportation. Vincent's jaw tightened at that, yet he nodded. Marcus will drive behind you. Not with you, he said. Only if you agree, Claire added. Nora studied her brother. He can follow at a distance. Vincent accepted the condition. Claire noticed how difficult that small surrender was for him, and how deliberately he made it anyway. For the first time, she saw more than a man accustomed to obedience. She saw someone realizing that love without permission could become another form of fear. Vincent looked at Claire with a new intensity, not possessive, not grateful, but assessing the woman who had forced him to confront a truth no one in his world dared speak aloud. You trusted her before you knew her name, he said. I trusted what I saw. And what do you see when you look at me? Claire held his gaze. A man deciding whether power is more important than his sister. Before he could answer, every light in the boardroom went dark. A second later, the emergency system announced a carbon monoxide warning throughout the hotel, ordering all guests toward the west exits. Claire's blood turned cold. The west exits were exactly where the intruder's marked map had directed them. Claire did not move toward the west exits. She looked at the dark ventilation panel above the boardroom door, then at the emergency display glowing on the wall. The alarm claimed dangerous carbon monoxide levels were rising, but the automatic exhaust fans had not activated. The pressure doors remained open, and no detector location appeared on the control screen. The warning is false, she said. Vincent looked toward the hallway, where frightened voices were already gathering. Can you prove it? Not before 300 guests reached the men waiting outside. Claire lifted her radio. All department supervisors, ignore the west exit instruction. Move guests into the interior conference rooms and east stairwells. Keep everyone calm. Do not mention an attack. The engineer answered through static. Miss Bennett, the central system is locked. Then we operate manually. Open the rooftop exhaust controls and bring portable detectors to every occupied floor. Howard's voice broke through next. You cannot override an evacuation order. If you are wrong, people could die. Claire closed her eyes for 1 second. He was right about the risk, even if he was wrong about everything else. If real gas filled the hotel, delaying evacuation could turn her judgment into a disaster. She looked at the silent fans again. Move guests into protected zones while we test the air. Nobody uses the west exits until I confirm them safe. Vincent reached for his telephone. My men can clear the loading area. No visible weapons, Claire said. No panic. Your people follow Marcus, and Marcus follows my security chief. Vincent held her gaze, then nodded. You heard her. The words carried through the dark room with unmistakable authority, but the decision remained Claire's. Nora stood beside the table, pale but steady. Daniel planned this, she said. He always said crowds were useful because fear makes people obedient. Claire gave her the hotel telephone. Call the attorney again. Keep the line open and record everything. They moved through the service corridor as emergency lights flashed overhead. Claire directed families into the ballroom, sent elderly guests to the East Lounge, and ordered staff to bring bottled water and blankets. Her curvy frame filled the narrow passage as she guided people forward, not with force, but with certainty. Guests who had ignored her at check-in now followed every word. At the loading level, Marcus reported that 2 unfamiliar vehicles had parked beyond the security gate. Before Vincent could respond, the freight elevator opened. Daniel Crow stepped out wearing a navy overcoat, accompanied by the false maintenance worker and 2 private guards. He smiled when he saw Nora. "There you are. You have caused enough embarrassment." Nora raised the telephone so the open line could hear him. "I am not going with you." Daniel's smile tightened. "You are frightened and confused. Vincent understands what is at stake." Vincent stepped beside Claire, but he did not answer for his sister. Daniel looked genuinely surprised. "Tell her." Vincent's voice was quiet. "She already told you." Daniel reached into his coat, not for a weapon, but for a folder of legal documents. Without her signature, the trust collapses, the alliance disappears, and every enemy you have starts moving by morning. Nora's hand trembled, yet she kept the telephone raised. "Then let it collapse." Daniel moved toward her. Claire activated the loading dock fire partition. A steel barrier descended between Daniel and the corridor, separating his guards from the hotel guests, while leaving him trapped inside the monitored receiving area. Marcus secured the outer door as hotel security arrived from the opposite stairwell. Daniel struck the barrier with his palm. "You have no idea who you are interfering with." Claire pressed the intercom button. "I know exactly who you are. You entered with false credentials, manipulated an emergency system, and attempted to force a guest from this property." Sirens approached through the snow outside. Nora faced Daniel through the reinforced glass. "I revoke every permission I ever gave you." "My attorney heard it, Claire heard it, and my brother heard it." Vincent stood behind her without touching her, letting the choice remain hers. When the police entered the loading bay, Daniel finally understood that the woman he had treated as property had become the witness who would dismantle his control, and the hotel manager he had overlooked had turned an entire building against him without firing a single shot. By sunrise, the Halcyon no longer looked like a palace built for secrets. Police officers moved through the loading bay. Engineers tested every ventilation zone, and exhausted guests gathered beneath the chandeliers with blankets around their shoulders. The carbon monoxide readings were clean. The emergency warning had been manufactured, the access records had been recovered, and Daniel Crow was taken away after the attorney on Nora's open telephone confirmed that every threat and demand had been recorded. Howard Whitmore tried to regain control of the lobby by announcing that corporate leadership would investigate Claire's decisions. No one listened. The chief engineer stepped forward with the access logs proving that Claire had identified the compromised credentials before the false evacuation. The security chief confirmed that her protected zone plan had kept hundreds of guests away from the west exits where Daniel's vehicles had been waiting. Then a mother holding a sleeping child said the words Howard could not dismiss. "She kept us calm when everyone else was protecting themselves." Other guests began to agree. Employees who had spent years watching Claire solve problems without recognition stood beside her, not because Vincent ordered them to, but because they had seen what she had done. Howard looked toward Vincent, as if the most powerful man in the room might rescue him from the truth. Vincent did not. "You were prepared to sacrifice your manager's judgment to satisfy my reputation," he said. "She protected your guests while you protected your position." Howard's authority collapsed without a threat, a payment, or a raised voice. It collapsed because everyone finally saw the difference between leadership and status. Nora left the hotel that morning in a car arranged by the independent attorney. Marcus followed at a distance only after she gave permission. Before entering the car, she embraced Claire and whispered, "You gave me a door he could not open." Then she faced Vincent. He did not ask where she was going. He only promised to answer when she chose to call. 3 weeks later, Daniel's attempt to control the trust was suspended, and investigators connected his private security company to the false credentials. An emergency system breach. Nora selected her own legal team, her own residence, and the terms under which Vincent could return to her life. Their relationship did not heal in a single conversation. It healed through patience, apologies, and the unfamiliar discipline of letting Nora make decisions he disliked. The Halcyon's owners offered Claire money to leave quietly. She refused. Instead, she presented a complete plan for a guest safety division designed to protect people escaping coercion, stalking, and domestic abuse. The board approved it after employees, guests, and investigators confirmed that her judgment had prevented a dangerous evacuation. Claire became director of guest safety for all 12 Halcyon properties, with the authority to rewrite the policies that had nearly failed Nora. She did not receive the position because Vincent demanded it. She received it because her record made refusing her impossible. Several months later, Vincent returned alone on a quiet Friday evening. No black vehicles blocked the entrance. No guards inspected the elevators. Claire found him waiting near the same marble desk where she had once denied him access. "Do you require a room?" she asked. "No," he said. "I came to ask whether you would have dinner with me." Claire studied him. The old Vincent would have reserved the restaurant, cleared the room, and treated her answer as a formality. This man simply waited. "And if I say no?" she asked. "Then I leave with respect for the answer." Claire let the silence test him. He did not reach for power, charm, or pressure. At last, she smiled and stepped from behind the desk. "Then my answer is yes." Together they walked into the snowy Philadelphia evening, not as a ruler claiming a reward, and not as a woman rescued by his attention, but as two people choosing to meet beyond the boundaries that had once divided them. Power had opened every door Vincent ever wanted, but restraint had taught him which doors he deserved to enter. If you were Claire, would you risk your career to protect a stranger? Or if you were Vincent, could you step back when someone you loved chose a path you could not control? Share your decision in the comments and tell us which city or country you are watching from. Subscribe to hear more stories about overlooked women whose courage changes powerful men without surrendering the right to choose their own lives.